We're back, everybody. I had some food. I was disrespected a little bit in chat. I had to take a minute to think it over. Um, I've returned. We relitigated for the 40th time in the history of this channel Disco Elysium's place. Got that out of our system. Everybody's feeling good. We're back at it. Another episode of Misericorde. Let's get it going. I was completely exhausted by the time I made it to the dormitory. The relatively light art supply box weighed heavy like a millstone going up the stairs. I practically slammed it onto my desk as soon as I made it to my room. An early night was the only thing I could think about. I got into my night clothes as fast as I could, as if trying to prove to myself that I indeed intended to follow through on the idea. My body was so stiff that even stripping out of my habit felt laborious, and when I bent down to pick my nightdress off of the floor, I wondered if I even had the energy to stand up straight again. I groaned impolitely as I straightened out and let the clothes slip over me. Never again in my life did I want to run or hike. I was ready to sleep. However, as I ran my hands over the mattress in an attempt to straighten it out a little, I realized that I had forgotten something important. There was still a book on my bed. That copy of the Gospel of Matthew that I had dropped off in a hurry before returning to Flora. As ominous as it was, I was glad I hadn't smacked my head into it like I had with the copy of Medea currently underneath the bed. I opened the book. The cover was still slightly damp, and some of the pages had fused together. I thumbed through carefully to the pages that had been open when I had vomited all over it. The black bile had faded, but it was quite obviously ruined. I was not sure what I was looking for. A clue, perhaps, of who had returned it to my cell, or how. Perhaps some demon had magicked it there through that accursed sigil. Why, exactly, this devil's nefarious plan included returning books to rooms that they had been thrown out of, well, I had no immediate hypothesis. I turned to the page I had been working on when my time in the cell had been interrupted. Matthew 5:37. As I studied the ruined pages and saw no hidden messages nor threats, my anxiety evaporated. I slammed the book shut and threw it onto the floor with a thud. It was obviously another one of Eustace's pranks, I reasoned. The timing was certainly convenient, after the threats of her ghost had given me in the Misericorde. I scoffed aloud, with some small hope that she was somehow within earshot. Undoubtedly, if I hadn't knocked her onto her arse and unmasked her that night, this book would have been revealed to me at some portentous moment. Whoa, Hedwig! Dropping the A word. Holy, Flora getting to you. She must have stored it in my cell to keep it out of view until whenever suited her little plan. I could just see her, casually asking the superior for the key in that infuriatingly flat voice of hers, and she'd probably said she needed something from my shelf for the library. I slammed my fist into the pillow, buried my face in the divot. Then I remembered something. I pulled myself up on my knees, and I lifted my pillow. A little strip of black cloth. It was there. Proof! I reached over the bed for my stocking, and I stuffed it inside. Oh, I couldn't wait to see the look on Eustace's face when I showed her that. If I could find the missing patch on her frock. I laid down, feeling satisfied. I imagined profuse apologies over and over, and yet I still went to sleep angry. The morning offices and luncheon passed in a blur the next day. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. I had sleepwalked through several days when I had been feeling morose, but today was different. There was a high-pitched whine between my eyes, so intense that I had a headache by the end of service. I felt as light as a bee, and equally as prone to sting whoever bothered me. It was not all anger, Some of it, I realized as luncheon came to a close, was nervous anticipation. I kept glancing over at Eustace, who seemed, to my chagrin, completely unbothered. The superior was waiting for us outside of the rectory when we all left. Hang on, I'm going to pour some more tea. I just didn't want you to hear dripping tea as I was talking. She pointed at Eustace, Moira, and myself, and beckoned for us to join her. Are you all ready for a little fun? Oh, we're going into town today! Oh, I forgot about this! Absolutely. Good. It's high time the women of this abbey made an appearance in Linbarrow village, and I thought an adventure outside the abbey would be an exciting little adventure for our newest. Well, not newest, but you know what I mean. That's you. That's me. Just a little treat. I was losing count of the little lies I was having to go along with for the sake of this quest. Moira and Darcy worked hard yesterday to bake some fritters to share with the townsfolk. What is it we're actually meant to do there? The superior shot me a quizzical look. Oh, spread some cheer, of course. Attend to the people's spiritual needs. Nothing heals the soul like a sweet treat. They're really good, too. If I do say so myself. Eustace had said nothing for the course of the entire conversation. She remained silent as the superior led us across the grounds to the front gate. A cart and donkey were waiting there for us. There was a sturdy chest loaded onto the wooden cart that looked like one of us could have fit inside snugly. If it was full of sweet fritters, Darcy and Moira must have been very busy. I had no idea we kept a mule here. We do not. Typically, we have to send word to have one delivered from the village if we need to travel, but this one has remained here ever since the incident. Oh. So this was the donkey and the cart that James had been driving when he was last free. Just how many animals was Darcy technically responsible for at this point? Moira stepped into the driver's seat of the cart, leaving me and Eustace to sit facing each other in the back. The superior looked uncharacteristically amused at the sight of us loaded into the vehicle. My girls, off on a diplomatic mission together. Had I the means, I would commission a painting. I haven't been down to the village in months at least. This is going to be a riot. She shook the reins and the cart wobbled forward. Moira turned to wave at the superior. Eustace and I followed suit, although we were both less enthusiastic than Moira. The superior disappeared behind the road as it began to curve downward. I looked ahead and suddenly felt a wave of panic as I realized just how long and winding the path down the mountain was, and how far afield I was about to find myself. Stuck in a cart with someone that I'd rather never speak to again, no less.
So, this'll be new for you.
I suppose it will be.
Listen,
Eustace, I have no real interest in speaking with you at the moment. You two, let's not fight, eh? Let's pretend that our little problems exist in the Abbey, and out here we're just traveling missionaries. Or brave soldiers on patrol. No. Or adventurous outlaws.
Hedwig, I owe you an apology.
More than one? She sighed and adjusted how she was sitting. She rested her forehead in her hands and looked at the floor of the cart.
I should have said something yesterday, but I was indisposed. So, I'm sorry this took so long, first of all. And I apologize for, well, you know.
Remind me. I felt strangely powerful. I folded my arms.
I'm sorry that I dressed up as a ghost. I'm sorry that I tried to scare you. I went a bit far.
You did it more than once.
Yeah.
How? Why? I mean, it was so elaborate.
Well, I am the sacrist. I saw the suit of armor and thought, well, this could be good for a lark.
What on earth for? No, some lark.
It's Abbey tradition to do some sort of hazing prank. I just got carried away.
That is so petty. So petty and cruel. Even if it was appropriate to haze nuns, which it is not, why couldn't it just be a little nicer? Aren't there any nice pranks?
You're right.
What about, I don't know, a surprise feast or maybe a gift? Something along those lines.
I won't argue with you.
You could have just said boo, perhaps. That still would have been a touch mean-spirited, but you killed a goat for your own entertainment. Eustace shook her head.
I did not kill a goat. That is entirely in your imagination.
I saw it, and I saw it plainly.
Anything you saw like that was a trick of the mind, I promise.
So I'm mad, is that it?
No, it happens to everyone. In a heightened emotional state, you'll often see things that conform to your expectations. Or fears, as it were.
That is ridiculous.
It's true. Did you know there's a mosque in Turkey where worshippers believe that they see a ghost of a young woman in the shadows? It sounds ridiculous, but so many people have claimed to have seen her, it could hardly be an accident. They all see a girl wearing a crown.
Spent 20 minutes wondering what the fuck happened to my sound, restarted the PC, checked the drivers, the TV was on mute. I don't know if you were here in the Xenogears VOD when everything went crazy after the visuals flickered and I didn't have sound anymore. And I found out, I think it was just the optical cable that feeds in from the TV to my sound setup got knocked loose. So same thing happened to me. It dragged the stream to a halt for like 10 minutes as I was trying to figure out what was going on. I turned the PS1 off, turned it back on, power cycled the scaler, whole bunch of stuff, and it was just the optical cable. So I get it, man.
They all see a girl wearing a crown.
I don't particularly care what they're up to in Turkey. Eustace let out a heavy sigh.
Look, the point is, sometimes people see things that aren't there that feel very real. I promise you I did not kill a goat. I may have been nasty to you, but I would not have killed an innocent animal just to scare you.
So there was no goat? None at all?
I did not kill a goat in front of you. I would not do that.
But you would dress up as a ghost?
Yes.
And wave a flaming sword around?
Yes. And when you put it that way, it does sound rather a cruel joke.
How did you even light the sword on fire?
I brushed the blade with oil and held it up to a torch. That's all.
I looked her dead in the eyes. She matched my gaze for a moment before the cart hit a bump and her glasses were knocked askew. Moira was chuckling softly. Whoops! Sorry, I'm not very good at this. Eustace rearranged her glasses and sighed.
I don't always have a perfect grasp of how people might react to the things that I say or do. Sometimes I run with an idea that isn't as clever as I think it is, or speak my mind to people who weren't really interested in my input. I'm sure you've noticed that I could be rather
inscrutable?
I was gonna say flat, but I'll take inscrutable.
Eustace is Eustace.
Yes. Thank you, Moira.
See?
At any rate, I would really like to put this behind us. We have to work together after all. Will you accept my apology?
For what? Eustace was approaching this request as if my acquiescence was guaranteed, but I did not respond in kind. I felt vindictive. I felt more vindictive than I had felt in my entire life. She looked surprised that I hadn't budged.
For my prank, as I said. And for my behavior in general, I suppose, which, as you say, can be inscrutable. I'll do my best to change that.
Does that include moving my things around? Perhaps putting things in my cell to find later?
What?
I found it. The copy of Matthew the 1st that I dropped out the window the night that you were watching me in my cell.
Hedwig, I don't know what you're talking about.
You have no reason to lie about this anymore. I saw you in that ridiculous costume the very night that in my cell. I could see you in the grass.
I wasn't there.
My temper flared, and I let out an embarrassing noise, somewhere between a groan and a fart. I pulled up my frock and pulled the piece of cloth I had found outside the abbey out, somewhat awkwardly. Eustace looked utterly nonplussed. I found this out there. Who else could it have been but you?
Any one of us. A drifter? A soldier marching past the abbey who got his cloak stuck on a branch. That just so happened to coincide with one woman's mad delusion months later. It could have been anyone, Hedwig. But it wasn't me.
And why should I believe you? After what you did the other night. You... I could feel myself turning scarlet as I sputtered. I noticed Moira shrinking in her seat ahead of us, and suddenly I felt very embarrassed.
Are you gonna hit me again?
No, of course not.
All right. Well, you could if you wanted to.
I don't want to.
Ah. Well, that's good.
She rubbed her cheek.
It did hurt me quite a bit.
I felt horrible now. I looked toward the back of the cart for a while, watching the road move beneath us.
I am sorry. Truly.
And you promise you haven't left any mysterious books for me anywhere?
I did not put that book in your cell. I haven't ever been in your cell at all, as a matter of fact.
I looked back toward Eustace. She was holding a hand out to me, and even had the faintest hint of a pleading look in her eye. I wasn't sure what to do. I was furious with her still, but I knew that letting that anger stew any longer would only serve to make me miserable. After all, we had to work in the same room. Not only that, but I still felt highly guilty for attacking Eustace in response to her practical joke. Justified or not, it was not a response that had ever been in my repertoire, and I very much wanted to never feel compelled to violence ever again. I wanted to bury those feelings deep in the ground forever. I was still mulling over my response when a pair of fritters appeared in front of my face.
Would these help?
Eustace and I looked over at Moira, whose back was still turned to us as she watched the road ahead. She had reached one arm behind her, two tasty-looking pastries held like Adela's cards between her fingers. I tucked the little black cloth I had been waving in Eustace's face back into my stocking and sighed. Just wondering. Eustace and I both took one. I nibbled at it and instantly felt at peace.
Wow, these are good.
They were supposed to be for the village, but I snuck a few away for the trip. I'm glad you did. I could hear Moira crunching into her own fritter. Oh, so am I now. Goodness, these are some lucky people we're about to visit.
I thought you didn't like Limbarrow, Moira.
Oh, I have my criticisms. Eustace took another bite of her pastry.
I suppose we all do.
Catherine most of all. I doubt she would have approved of this gesture.
Oh, she would have done it. She would have just complained a lot beforehand.
And after. They chuckled as if sharing a private joke. We finished our fritters. Eustace licked her fingers and wiped the crumbs off of her frock before extending a hand out to me again. Friends. I paused for a moment, but I couldn't keep this self-righteous act up much longer. Even if I did not fully believe that Eustace hadn't also placed that book in my cell as part of some elaborate next step in her foiled prank, I supposed I had no reason to hang it over her head forever. I reached out and grabbed Eustace's wrist, and her fingers curled around my own. Friends. Eustace smiled, but her face returned to its default flat expression as soon as she leaned back against the side of the cart. So, why wouldn't Catherine have liked doing this? She also had, well, opinions about the townsfolk. I'm a little shocked. Does anybody have a good relationship with this town? I'm sure the Superior handles it all well enough.
Surely it felt a little odd that nobody from the village came to seek your advice when you were in Anchorus.
I was surprised until I had it explained to me that, well, we're having to take a cart ride to even get there, aren't we? That's right.
I think that people never really liked that fact. It put us on the wrong foot from the get-go.
But Lynbarrow Abbey is rather old, isn't it? Surely things must have, I don't know, improved?
Right. The distance and the inconvenience is just part of it. Well, you'll see. I suppose if I had to put it delicately, if we had the ability to choose the kind of villagers our abbey served,
Which we don't.
of course not. But if we did, well, it wouldn't be a town like Lynbarrow.
I was, quite frankly, appalled by this. If I hadn't already shaken hands and made up with Eustace, I might reconsider agreeing to the endeavor after hearing such conceited talk. What a horrible thing to say.
It is what it is. You'll see when we get there.
They're not all bad. I was trying to think of things to say that wouldn't reopen the just sutured wound between Eustace and myself, and was struggling to come up with anything. However, just as the cart rounded a sharp switchback corner, I thought of something that Catherine had said in the Misericorde. Well, I hadn't dared to mention the assignment that the Superior had given me for this excursion, but I reasoned that since Catherine herself had mentioned it to me while drinking, it wouldn't arouse any suspicion. Catherine's from this village, isn't she? Catherine was Irish.
She means Catherine the First.
Oh, silly me. Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, Catherine used to live in Lynbarrow.
She mentioned something about being run out of town. She seemed, well, rather bitter about it. As well as she should.
I'm surprised she told you all of this. But yeah, it's true, and we don't like to talk about it much. It's a fast way to put her in a rotten mood.
I would feel the same. It's so unfair. Would it be prying too much to ask you guys exactly what happened? She was quite vague about it.
It's not our story to tell. Like I said, it's a touchy subject.
Suffice to say, it put me off of the town. The way they treated her. I won't pry.
That's good.
I'd be chuffed that she told you anything about it at all, though. That's real trust, that. This line of questioning seemed to be a non-starter. I had hoped for a moment that I could get my assignment completed before stepping out of the cart. A wave of panic hit me as I realized that not only were my environs about to be completely unfamiliar, I was about to be surrounded by people. Strange, new people who sounded like they were predisposed to dislike me. I did poorly enough navigating my own conflicts, and now, though, well, I'd be forced to deal with a feud that sounded like it's been simmering for years. How long ago had Catherine been ousted from Lynbarrow? How long before that had the townsfolk resented the abbey up the hill? I was inheriting a mess that may well have started before I was even born. The rest of our journey went without conversation. Eustace furrowed her brow and rested her chin on her hands, gazing out of the back of the cart for the remainder of the trip. I couldn't bring myself to relax. That the miasma of indignance toward Eustace had more or less dissipated, and now panic was setting in. I began to worry about falling out of the cart and hurting myself. What if I got lost in the town and Moira and Eustace were forced to leave me there? What if a particularly large crate fell right on my head? What if I was set upon by strangers with murderous or lascivious intent? If I had to choose one of these scenarios, which one was more likely and which would be my preferred outcome? Oh, I was mulling over all of these ghoulish bits of calculus so intensely that I didn't notice that the cart had stopped.
Hedwig?
We're here. Moira had stopped the cart next to a wooden post on the edge of a very muddy road.
Youch! I should have remembered to wear boots.
I remembered. Moira finished tying the donkey's reins to the post and enthusiastically lifted her robe to show off her shoes.
Wow, fancy.
I didn't know there were any boots at the Abbey.
Oh, they're a must once it starts snowing. Ask the superior about it when you get a chance. Although, the ones we get typically aren't as posh as those.
These were a gift.
Lucky you. Hedwig, don't worry about the mud. Just get out of the cart.
It looks really foul. Jump over here. It's not quite as mushy. I don't know.
Just jump down. It's really not that bad.
I glanced between Eustace, whose robe was already getting muddy around the fringe, and Moira, who was enthusiastically gesturing at me from her position on a harder-packed bit of road. Against my better instincts, I awkwardly positioned myself on the edge of the cart and... Wow! Miraculously, I had landed on the sturdy bit of the road. My legs, clearly still weak from my recent bouts of sprinting, screamed at me to never do that again and gave way almost immediately in protest. Luckily, Moira caught me. My head crashed into her shoulders, and we stumbled together for a few steps before regaining our footing. I was so sure she was going to faceplant. Part of me was hoping that, 12 hours into this story, 10 hours into this story, we were going to be given our first just meaningless option, I just remember Fata Morgana. The first time it dropped an option it meant nothing, and it was so deep. It would have just carried on the exact same way. The differences would be so slight it wouldn't even matter. Sorry. Don't be. Who would have known that we had a little acrobat tucked away in that cell?
Yes, very well done. Unfortunately, I'm going to need both of you to step back over here to help me with the fritters.
Thankfully, we didn't need to lug the whole crate around. While we did wind up having to traipse around in the mud to retrieve them, Darcy had organized the sweet treats into 3 cloth sacks for us to carry. So thoughtful. I realized the heaviest thing about our cargo had been the chest itself, which looked like it might have been able to withstand a catapult. Well, where should we start? Eustace nodded towards a farmhouse, not far from where our donkey was hitched.
Here's as good a place as any.
We lugged our bag of baked goods toward the modest house. The land was just on the edge of the huge hill we had just ridden our way down. A few trees dotted the well-grazed lawn, and a lone horse stood idly close to the stable. I couldn't help but feel that it looked deep in thought. As we approached, a side door to the house swung open.
What's all this, then?
We come bearing gifts.
Is that right?
A woman emerged behind the gruff-looking man. Both of them looked cautious.
Feels like it's been donkey's years since you lot came down here.
Sister Moira and Sister Eunice, right?
Eustace, milady.
My apologies. I don't recognize this one. Oh, this is Sister Hedwig. She's new. I tried to say something, but all I could muster was a little noise. I waved instead.
We heard about Catherine. Terrible thing, that. Can't help but feel responsible.
Please, don't. It's not your fault.
James was a troubled boy well before we started looking after him. No helping some people. That's what I've learned. James lived here?
Aye. My nephew. Always a little funny, that one, but I never would've... Oh, I didn't know he was that kind of blackguard.
Lost his family in the war years ago.
Aye. They were taken for spies traveling home one night. He'd be, 22, 23 now? Supposed to be running by the family inn by now, but he just wasn't cut out for being a landlord.
And I'm not sure there's much of an inn left.
Anyway, we took him in, put him to work on the farm. We do modest work out here. A little bit of animal husbandry, but the real money's in stabling the horses for folk in town. James was a real helping hand on a good day, but he had a habit of running off whenever he felt like it, sleeping in, and being a nuisance in town.
God rest him, but he was a sloppy worker. Terrible with the animals. Never had more livestock go missing than when we left it up to him.
We were doing something good taking him in. He had potential. Some people find their way later than others.
I like that line. We didn't get the full one, so I will get it.
I really do believe that. It was only right. But now, well, here we are.
If you're here to solicit donations, it'd only be right for us to be generous. Oh, that's so kind, but we're actually here to bring you something. Moira opened her bag and held it out to the couple.
Well, now, did Sister Darcy make these?
That's right.
In that case, I don't mind if I do.
And he's got like really grabby little fingers. He and his wife happily took a pastry each. They bit into them, and I could see a sense of relief overtake their worried faces. Crumbs, that's good.
Too right.
He took another bite. As he munched, he pointed a thick, calloused finger toward me.
So what's your story?
It's not altogether very interesting. I heard about Catherine, and I felt compelled to help. After all, she was the chronicler, and I used to write all day, so... She was our anchoress.
Oh, I see.
One of those hermits?
I didn't know they could just up and stop.
It's unusual, certainly.
I imagine it must be quite strange, leaving a position like that after so much time. And you were born in there?
No. I was very young when I started, though. What's your favorite thing about being free?
Ah, now, don't upset her. She wasn't not free before. It's an important job, innit?
That's right. Oh, I don't mean to offend. Still, though, it must be very different to be out and about all of a sudden. Well, Hedwig is taking a real shine to her new work.
Yes, she's really putting her back into it.
I couldn't tell if this was meant to be a jab at the altercation I thought we had just put behind us or not, but it irritated me all the same.
Well, that's good to hear. Sorry I never made use of your services while you were anchored. Only it's quite a commitment, getting all the way up there and back.
We had James make that trip more often than not. If there was one thing he was always good for, it was that.
Mail, supplies, that sort of thing. Well, that was all his purview. I suppose he must have set his wicked sights on Sister Catherine. Maybe he was watching her the whole time.
Best not to speculate.
And don't blame yourselves. If it would make you feel better to make some sort of donation, I could let the superior know.
Not that we came here to solicit that sort of thing, mind you.
Oh, no, of course not. I hope I didn't offend. No. It'd only be right.
It'd only be right. Yeah.
I wanted very badly to tell these poor people that I had spoken with James, and that I was trying my very best to help him. Whatever joy the fritters had brought was nothing compared to the pain that I could sense behind their rugged faces. These were delicious, by the way.
Sister Darcy always was a talent. You lot should come down here more often.
I agree.
Suppose you'll be off to see the town now.
Yes. Hopefully we brought enough of these.
I won't bother you for seconds, then. You got a good day now, sisters.
Pax Phobith. We all exchanged nods. Eustace led the way past the farm back toward the road. Well, that went better than I had feared.
Really? I'd rather get cupped than do that again. Those poor people.
They were really very sweet. How horrible for them, though. I only meant that, I don't know, in the cart ride down, I was half expecting to be met with swords and spears.
Who says we won't be? We're not in the village proper yet.
I stopped, dead in my tracks. The buildings ahead of us loomed like some dark fortress's gate, and I suddenly became very aware once again that I was further from my cell than I had ever been. Further than the hills, further than the hospitalum. Oh, Eustace, don't scare her.
Sorry. I'm just being glib.
Are you ready, Hedwig? Hold on. I doubled over, still clinging to my bag of fritters. I tried my best to take deep breaths, but it was difficult. I was no longer in complete control of my faculties.
Hedwig?
You can do it, Hedwig. I'm so far from home, and you have friends with you. It's all right. What if I just drove the cart back myself? I could send someone else back down with it to collect you. I've had quite enough for a day, I think. Do you know how to drive a cart and a mule?
It's gonna be fine. I was just grousing on the ride down. It's just silly personal drama. I probably made it seem bigger than it really is.
At worst, it'll be a little awkward. Little Red Dead Redemption reference, Earth Nuggets? When I think about carts and bridges, that's all I can think about, is my Red Dead Redemption playthrough where it seemed like the horses just pathed themselves off of bridges. Whenever we had I named one of the horses Bridge. You can handle awkward. I want to go back.
Look, if someone's rude to you, you have my permission to slap them.
Eustace. I took a particularly large gulp of air and stood up straight.
Uh-oh. Look, you definitely shouldn't slap anyone here. I was joking.
It was funny.
Okay, but seriously, don't.
I won't. I would never.
Guess I got lucky.
Are you ready? Let's get this over with, shall we? Entering the village proper was immediately dizzying. I had only just started growing accustomed to the size and scope of the abbey. But now I was surrounded by buildings and streets that were unto themselves their own little abbeys. Despite being spread out between buildings, courtyards, gates, and windows, I had been able to think about Lynbarrow Abbey as one place. Leaving my cell had been painful, but I was at least still in a world I could understand. No, I'm with Polycubic on this one. What do you mean you got lucky? I could not bring myself to think about the village in the same way, even though it was the village of Lynbarrow. I tried to stretch my understanding to include all of these places in my head as Lynbarrow, but it was impossible. I had no idea how Eustace and Moira could walk so calmly between the shops and houses and inns and not feel absolutely terrified. Does that sound mad? It sounds mad to say it out loud, but it really was impossible to comprehend. One could not walk, I presumed, from one house into another the way I was allowed in the Abbey. The only place I was restricted from going was the back of Eustace's library, which was really only a request. I watched people knock on doors, waiting for someone to invite them in. I saw men standing impatiently outside of shops, waiting for their proprietors to return. Everyone, it seemed, was so beholden to the terms of some uneasy peace treaty, and everyone was the king of their own little castle. Living like this would make me even more miserable than the Abbey did. As we passed people in the street, we would offer them fritters from our bags. Most conversations were short, if there even was a conversation at all. Moira was perfectly chipper, and Eustace maintained her usual calm demeanor through even the more brusque encounters. The rudest people acted as if we weren't there. One even bumped Eustace on the shoulder, and I'm sure it was on purpose. Eustace didn't react at all, save for a quietly muttered curse word that I dare not repeat. For my own part, I was doing my best to keep up the act. I dragged my feet in lockstep with my cohorts. I went through the motions of lifting up the bag. I didn't speak unless I absolutely needed to, and I forced a smile to each passerby instead, hoping that it would be enough. My cheeks were already numb by the end of the first street. Goodness, we still have so many left.
Darcy made too many, as usual.
That's just like her. She's very kind. Is there something wrong with her making lots?
No, of course not.
No, it's sweet how excited she gets helping us out.
Not every observation about someone is a criticism, you know.
Oh, be nice. Weren't you just getting snitty about Hedwig calling you, I can't even remember now,
Inscrutable?
That wasn't really a criticism either. It seemed that Moira was the only one of us having any fun. We trudged through more streets, passing out fritters and knocking on doors. Not a single person had anything to say to us beyond a courtesy greeting and a thanks, and many people didn't even have those to spare.
I don't think anyone's home.
Try just one more time. I'd feel terrible if we missed someone.
Not a peep.
All of a sudden, I was soaked. It happened so fast I didn't even think to realize what happened at first. I felt as if someone had boxed me around the ears. Oh, Hedwig! What an... Ugh! An unconcerned-looking woman was looking down at us from the window above, holding a still dripping laundry bucket.
My apologies, miss. I didn't even see you three down there. Of course not. It's very easy to miss nuns at your door. Well, there's no need for sarcasm, miss.
Neither Eustace nor Moira had gotten very wet at all. I, however, was covered, head to toe. There was an unpleasant Fausty smell coming from the water, and I realized that my bag of fritters was sopping wet as well. Would you like a fritter, madam?
No, thank you, miss.
Of course, madam. We'll just be off then.
Have a good day, miss.
The woman retreated from the window without so much as an apologetic glance in my direction.
Well, at least it was water.
Here, Hedwig. Let me carry that. No, if you're sure. Eventually, we came to a square with several diverging streets. Eustace leaned against a wall looking fed up. Moira looked as if she was finally noticed that Eustace and I were not as sociable as she was. Her pleasant smile morphed into an expression altogether more concerned. Oh, how are you two doing?
I just want to get this over with.
Yeah, I've had quite enough of this, to be honest. Nobody seems to even care that we're here. Maybe it'd be best to just cut our losses and go home?
We can't do that.
No, that wouldn't be right. Why not? Both of you had horrible things to say about the people here on the way down. Not so loud. And with all the honesty, I must agree with him now. And now you're dedicated to finishing this completely thankless task for them? Why?
She has a point. I mean, I don't love the idea of telling the superior that we gave up, but
We really can't go back until we've finished. Why not? Eustace. Moira mentioned for Eustace to come closer and whispered something into her ear through her hood.
yeah, right.
I'm sorry, Hedwig, but we really need to do this job properly. I know it's difficult. What's going on? Nothing.
It's really nothing.
What kind of fool do you take me for? What did you tell her? Hedwig, why does nobody treat me with any sort of respect around here? Am I so difficult to explain things to? Would my fragile little mind simply burst if you explained whatever you told her to me as well? No, Hedwig, please.
You're making a scene again.
Moira took a step forward, positioning herself between Eustace and myself. Hedwig, I don't think you are foolish or difficult or anything like that. So what did you tell her? I can't say. The fury I had been nursing before the cart ride was back in full force, and this time I could not control it. I raised my hand. Moira flinched but stood her ground. I didn't hit her, of course, although I would not like to dwell on how close I came. Instead, I jabbed a finger in her face to gesticulate angrily. So you're lying, then? No, Hedwig, don't. Oh, how like Alicia I felt, not bald, but nonetheless belittled and insulted for things outside of my control. Oh, I cursed Moira. I cursed Eustace. I cursed the whole town for all to hear.
You need to get her back to the Abbey. This is not healthy for her.
But I hope Angela is right about the bears.
Huh?
I said, I hope Angela is right about the bloody bears.
I don't follow.
Eustace was nonplussed, but Moira had pieced my admittedly cumbersome insult together. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. You don't really mean that, Hedwig? Her sniffling caught me off guard. But before I had a chance to feel sorry, she stormed off, away from the town square, her bag of fritters still in her hand, and I remember that it bounced so inelegantly, it would have been funny in any other situation. Eustace cast a mild yet dark expression at me.
If you wanted to get back to the Abbey sooner, you probably should have kept that little tantrum to yourself.
Well, what did she tell you?
Never you mind.
She hoisted her bag over her shoulder and made to follow Moira.
Just stay put. I'll clean up this mess.
Wait, you're leaving me alone?
Yep.
But no, come on. That's silly. Let me just come with you. I'm sorry about all of that. This is just all so different for me and
stay put.
Why?
Because I don't really want to be around you right now.
But we're friends still, right? We said so. You said so in the cart. Without another word, she turned around and set off after Moira. I was left all alone in the town square, my frock still dripping mildewy water onto the cobblestones. I let the wet sack of food fall to the ground and sat down on a low wall. I gripped the bricks, digging my fingernails into the hard stone and biting my own lip, trying not to cry. Was my behavior so out of line? I deeply regretted upsetting Moira, but I had just withstood just about enough from one adventure. I was in a strange place, where strange things were happening to me. And now I was all alone. Every now and then, one of the townsfolk would walk through the square, but they paid me no mind. A dog wandered over to me, and I froze. I'd never seen one before. I recognized it instantly, but I was scared stiff. Even if it was a farm animal, I couldn't help but notice its sharp teeth and animal eyes. Shoo! I'm not food! The hound ignored my pleas and instead began snuffling around my legs. I held my breath as it rudely prodded my stomach with its snout all of a sudden. This song is so Psycholonials. I don't think anybody here, unless Franco's lurking, was around for Cyclonials. This song reminds me of Cyclonials so deeply. No, it's really not spoilers. This song is just very Cyclonials. The music in Cyclonials is insanely good. Please, 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 please go away. I yelped as the creature drew itself up on its hind legs and rested its front paws on my knees. Not daring to move in case it felt like tearing me to pieces, I whimpered as it continued sniffing. Yeah, I did play Cyclonials on Goaty Quest. I did it at release. They released the story episodically week over week, and I played it live as it was coming out. After a genuinely harrowing handful of moments, it finally decided that I didn't seem all that tasty after all and returned to the ground, but not before licking my face for good measure. I was relieved that I was spared from becoming its dinner, but... Come now, why are you laughing? I was frightened. I could have been eaten. Oh, really now. Anyway, the beast turned his attention to the sack of fritters on the ground. Thank you, Polycubic. I suppose that it had smelled those first and had been looking for them the whole time that it had been assaulting me, but nonetheless, yeah, I want to read Homestuck. I really do. It had given me an awful fright. Even still, I felt the creature deserved better than dirty fritters. Leave those alone. They're all foul and soggy. The dog paid me no mind and wrestled with the sack until the contents spilled out onto the stone. Immediately, the dog began scarfing down huge bites of sodden pastries, which were quickly becoming one big messy blob. Don't. I suppose I had no reason to stop it. At the very least, it wasn't eating my face. Does that not bother you? Everybody clamoring for the dog, rise up. Is there nothing better for you to eat? I reasoned that the dog probably had no reason to care that the food was soaked through with dirty water. I sat and watched it eat. Oh, it was deeply unpleasant, but I couldn't look away. Moist crumbs fell out of its mouth as it chomped loudly. The same food being lapped up over and over. Eventually, however, the laundry water seemed to win out. The dog made a shuddery, spasming motion that made me flinch reflexively. I was unsure if it was about to wheel around and attack me. Instead, it made a ghastly hacking sound. Half-chewed slop poured out of its mouth. The fetid mountain of ruined pastry grew ever larger. Yet it kept eating. It paid no mind to what assuredly must have tasted even worse after coming out than before it went in. Had this creature been a man, I would have begged him to stop. But all I could do was watch it continue to regurgitate and reconsume this horrid slop that the sweet pastries had become. And then I heard a sound of trumpets. A mule in a wooden cart had arrived in the town square. No driver sat in its front seat. A wooden pole sat in place of a rider reaching up into the sky. I moved my gaze up to the pole to see that a large flag, or perhaps a kite, was drifting idly in the midday breeze. I held my breath as the cart passed me by. Another cart passed by, and another, each flying a new color, a different flag, a new kite. They drove in circles around the square. I think there had to have been a dozen in all. The dog chased at the tails of the mules as they walked past, dodging out of the way of the wheels at the last possible moment each time one came too close. In between each cart's passing, the little creature would return to its prized mountain of filth for another bite, before getting distracted again by the next donkey's tail. The trumpets blew once again, this time much louder, deeper, more mournful. A new kite joined the procession, this time not a simple flapping cloth, but an intricately adorned effigy. A man. His face was chiseled handsomely, his expression stoic. 2 poles had held this effigy aloft, one in each of the man's wooden hands. As this cart passed me, the effigy's head turned to face me. His eyes met with mine, and I realized it was no effigy at all, but a real figure. His gaze felt terrifying and peaceful all at once, and he beckoned me to follow him. The dog disappeared. Only its horrid meal remained. Yeah, I don't know why that was red. I don't think that was supposed to be. That was not red on my TV. That was something that got captured in the stream as red. I looked off to the right, and something about OBS, how it processed maybe like the dithering of that scene or something, made it show as red. Yeah, that's weird. Because I know sometimes, like, and I don't mean to, like, pull us away from this, right? Sometimes if I am on a scene, like, the certain wood grain stuff, if I go to, like, this and I have it zoomed out enough, you can sometimes see, like, red pixels kind of filling in some of the lines just because of the way that OBS interprets the colors. I don't know how best to explain it, but sometimes I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye. And I can't think at the moment what games do it more than others, but like sometimes some of the scenes that I have a little bit of red that doesn't quite look right. I can't think of which one right now. I'm not sure. But anyway, it might have just been something strange because I promise you, it was not red on my actual game screen. It was cool, and luckily we did actually capture it. Yeah, that's so bizarre. Look. That's how that captured. And even this, look at how the color is changing based on my zoom. You see that? But it's only purple for like one zoom. It has to be something with the specific dithering of that scene. How weird. It's just how, because again, on my TV, it's not showing any change in color. Huh. The dog had disappeared. Only its horrid meal remained. I took care to avoid stepping in it as I left my perch on the low wall and followed the cart as it peeled away from the procession in the square. I assume it continued behind me, but I do not know. I was transfixed by the cart ahead of me. Yeah, I can see some color in here too, but this is not... I think it might be... Let me show you, because now I'm curious about this. Uh-oh, hang on. Yeah, that's what it is. Look. How it's actually showing up on my end is blue and red, and it's being blurred by Twitch's, or OBS, rather. And so those colors are blending in real time. I guess it's being used to, like, show some sort of haze. But yeah, it is so faint on my end, it very, very easily could be, like, impossible to notice. But yeah, there is a very, very vague hint of, and I'll show you the... So, like... And as I zoom out, watch the processing slowly turn it purple. Ready? Based on the zoom, it's giving us different colors. because of how it's being interpreted by the amount of pixels are on the display. That's pretty cool. And I'm sure if we do this... No, it's not changing that way. I was curious if it would change if we were like here or something, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's interpreting it based on... Yeah, look at that. Wild. But it still looks black and white on my end. You know, there's a faint, like, teal. I followed the cart and its floating rider through the empty streets. I felt disconnected from my body, as if my footsteps were happening after I had already performed the next. I was drifting over the cobblestones. I felt as light as the man above the cart did. Again, that's what I see. And you zoom out enough, and somehow we're getting some sort of red being processed because of the way the dithering is and how the dithering is being interpreted by the stream. It's kind of like scan lines, right? Like it operates largely the same way, where you can see the like artifacting based on how many lines OBS is outputting based on versus how many lines are in here. And it's even changing like as I draw on it, because OBS is trying to figure out how to show it. That's wild. Get it all readjusting in real time. But again, on my end, it's not really that fancy. But no, this is not red for me in the slightest. Still very much black and white, but that's really fun that it shows up in two different ways. The sight of the effigy had already made me weep, but I could feel a confused urge to burst into sobs welling up inside. But I also felt light and calm and even joyous. I felt everything there possibly was to feel, all at once. As the cart reached a dead end, however, I felt a moment of doubt. I didn't want this sensation to end. I doubled back, hoping that the cart would turn and lead me again. It did no such thing. I felt a brief moment of panic as I turned around to perhaps coax the man to follow me and saw that it had disappeared. I gasped and I lunged around again, hoping that I had just missed it passing me by, but no such luck. I spun around again and again and again until I realized that I was no longer touching the ground. I floated above the village. I could see all of the streets, all of the houses, all of the nasty little fiefdoms, and all the people who ruled them. I was being pulled up and up and up by some force that I knew I had to give myself over to. This was right. This was where I needed to be. No-clipped. This strange sensation that I was being tugged up by the scruff of my neck eventually gave way to a feeling of blissful control. I was flying now, just as the man above the cart had been. I was flying higher, in fact, and all of the people below me could see what their cruelty and indifference had wrought. My ascendance, their abandonment. But then, I felt that hand around my neck again. Firmer this time. More assertive. I was being dragged by the throat the rest of the way up to my destination. A plateau above the village, overlooking the lake. Oh, I struggled to breathe. My breath was so ragged. I begged with whatever it was that held me to please let me go. Eventually, I was flung to the grass. And so here's another example that's just like you see all of these squares, like cross-hatched squares, right? On my end, and this is why I don't use scan lines in games, because what you're seeing as a whole bunch of squares is completely different when in actuality it's just dithered dots. But when it shows on a stream, when that original resolution gets bumped down to the output resolution of OBS, and then again to the output resolution of your display, whether you're watching it on your phone portrait or landscape or on your computer or windowed or what, it's gonna look drastically different based on how much you resize that original picture, that original image. It's pretty cool. I love it's fun to do an actual like living example of this stuff. Eventually I was flung to the grass. I fell on my back into the cold dew, my head crashing against the dirt. I felt a ripple of pain emanate from the back of my skull all the way out through my whole body. I couldn't move anymore. I stared into the clouds. They were a deep gray and heavy with rain. They covered the sky almost completely, save for a bright spot growing brighter above me. The clouds parted, and the man that I had followed appeared between them. He was gigantic, magnificent, and terrifying. His piercing stare kept me pinned to the ground. The trumpet sounded one final time. The man finally blinked, and with slow and regal grace, he withdrew between the black rain clouds that flanked him. It began to pour. I was all alone.